if you don't design your packaging to be fit for purpose and functional, the inevitable consequence of that will be food waste.
Hello, my name is Jayne Gallagher, the CEO of Honey and Fox, and I'm your host today for Food Waste Matters. Food Waste Matters is a podcast dedicated to shining a spotlight on the people and organisations who are joining the fight against food waste. And today my guest is Nerida Kelton, who is the Executive Director from the Australian Institute of Packaging, and she's also the Vice President, Sustainability and Save Food with the World Packaging Organisation. And our topic today is Save Food Packaging. And it's all about getting the balance right. Packaging plays such an important role in helping us to reduce food waste by protecting the food during its transport from production right through to the consumer. And we need to explore how we can get the balance right of minimising packaging waste while also minimising food waste. So without further ado, let's welcome Nerida to the cast. Well, welcome Nerida to the show. So excited to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about how you got involved in this whole area of safe food packaging.
Well, thank you so much for having me. So I am the Executive Director of the AIP, and the AIP, for those who may not know who we are, we're the peak professional body for packaging training and education in Australasia. And we have members and train people in Australia, New Zealand, and all areas of Asia. I also wear a volunteer role through the World Packaging Organisation, and I'm the current Vice President for Sustainability and Save Food. And I think for me personally, one of the core reasons that we got involved many years ago with Steve Lappich, and when this whole idea of developing a CRC was created, was because we had already been working very much in food, supporting the food industry through a program that we ran for Food Bank. And so because a lot of our members are coming out of predominantly food and beverage, this was an area that we felt was really important to the AIP, and we developed a food bank hamper program that was a Christmas program that we ran for 15 years. And we encouraged all of the brands to donate the items for the hampers, and we also would bring in 300-400 volunteers at Christmas time to physically pack the hampers and then distribute them out through Food Bank. And that program was really important to us because we realised that food insecurity was a serious issue, and unfortunately it's not got any better, it's got worse. And we felt as an industry we needed to contribute to it, and we needed our brands to support Food Bank and to help make sure that people had food. And so when the program was created as an idea, we thought, well, this is perfect, it fits everything that we believe, because it's such an important area. You know, food waste is it's devastating in this country, and we need to all contribute to it wherever we can in the industry, and that's why we became a part of the program.
As we're recording this, you've just come back from the National Food Waste Summit that was held in Melbourne, and I believe that there was some very exciting news that you'd love to share with our listeners. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, we had some really amazing, exciting news. We were a finalist in the inaugural Food Waste Action Awards, and we won the Collaboration Award, which was just amazing to have packaging at the forefront and to be recognised, particularly our project to be recognised for the impacts and the outcomes that we've been developing around our project. So we were super excited to take that trophy away.
Fantastic. And tell us a little bit more about why you won that award. We were talking before we started recording this about, that packaging, the important role that packaging plays in minimizing food waste. And in the work that we do at Honey and Fox, we're working with a lot of food businesses. And I guess the issue around wanting to be sustainable and minimizing packaging, but also needing the packaging to serve a purpose, not only for marketing, but also to minimize that waste, which is what we're all trying to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, so the challenge that we have in the industry, and I'm talking globally here, this is not just, just Australia, is that when we talk about sustainability and we talk about sustainable packaging, the predominant conversation is very heavily focused on plastic and packaging being bad. And the reality is that packaging has a role. It has a role to play. Just like, like a car, because people forget that we have to design our packaging to be fit for purpose and functional, which is absolutely paramount, because it's supposed to protect, contain, preserve, and transport a product all the way to a household. And you can't do that without packaging. But because of this whole consumer-facing push to reduce packaging, and we're not saying we don't support that, but we're forgetting that there are unintended consequences when we're talking about food waste. And so we have to make sure that when we talk about this, we get the balance right. And the balance is to have an even conversation and a science-based conversation around packaging waste versus food waste, because one of the challenges that we have is that everybody thinks that packaging is the worst environmental impact. And you and I both know it's not. The environmental impact of food waste is significantly higher. And the percentage of an environmental impact that's packaging is very low, particularly when we're talking about, from agriculture, from production and farms all the way through, and the environmental impact of creating and growing that product and then transporting it all the way through. And so for us, we wanted to make sure that when we joined Den Food Waste CRC, that we developed a project that was industry-led but science-based. And so that we weren't having anecdotal conversations about percentages of packaging waste versus food waste. And also we wanted to have the science around, if you don't design your packaging to be fit for purpose and functional, the inevitable consequence of that will be food waste or food loss, depending on where you are in the value chain. And so our project, our Safe Food Packaging project, was born out of making sure that we could develop guidelines and checklists and resources and training for the industry to really redesign their packaging to minimize that food loss and waste. Because if we get that packaging right at the start, we're not going to have the waste in the household, right?
That's so right. And it really speaks to that piece that everybody in the chain, from where the food is produced right to the household, the aim is not to have any food loss or any food waste through there. And packaging plays such an important role in that. And I guess as you were talking, I was thinking, and I was reading your report. It's a great report. If anybody hasn't read it, we'll put a link to it in our show notes. But I was reading in there that you're actually at the forefront of this, and Australia is at the forefront of this in the world. And one of the things that you said, we've got this goal of, of designers all over the world using the 5 Save Food Packaging design principles when they're working on packaging for food. Can you just tell us a little bit more about what they are and how that would work?
Yeah, so I guess we have one advantage, because the AIP is a member of the World Packaging Organization. We have an advantage that we have access to 63 member countries around the world that we can work with to be able to globalize these design guidelines, and we have been, and we can touch on that, some of the training that we've already implemented. So we have a very good tool in the WPO to be able to drive this out and embed this globally. So I guess to talk to the 5 guidelines, some of these are common sense to a packaging designer or a technologist, but when you are a small to medium-sized business, they're probably not as easily understood. And so what we wanted to do was to make sure that anybody could pick up these guidelines and to really look at their business and say, okay, well, how can I implement them? And so obviously the first one is really important. It's to contain and protect a product. And that's very much around protecting a product and transporting a product and preserving the quality, integrity of that product all the way through to a household. And understanding that manufacturing, warehousing, transportation, distribution can have an effect on food loss. And so if your packaging isn't strong enough or durable, or it doesn't have accurate sealing, or it leaks, or all of these things can create food loss up until it goes into distribution. And so the idea is to really trial and test and pilot the way your packaging transports and look at it. And we're not just talking about primary packaging here. We're not talking just about what goes on a retail shelf. We're talking about the cartons and the outers. We're talking about the pallets. And so understanding how your product is transported, and does it get to the appropriate value chain partners in the right quality, or is it damaged, or is it leaked, or is it popped open? And so that's the first one. The second one is around preservation and extension of shelf life. And again, this is a really important area, and we were talking to this in our packaging panel discussion at the summit. Preservation and extension of shelf life is critical, and so a lot of packaging is fit for purpose and function because we have to preserve and extend shelf life, right? And when you look at a country like Australia, we export a lot of premium product, a lot of very expensive products, fresh produce and meat, for example. We export those. We want to make sure that those products arrive at their destination in the best quality possible. And we want to make sure that it hasn't already passed its best before or used by date. And the only way we can do that is to look at the development of the most appropriate packaging and the most appropriate materials that will in fact extend shelf life. And a perfect example of that is meat trays. And so meat trays are all too often, they have a film on them, they have a PET, recycled PET tray, but they're vacuum packed or skin packed. And vacuum and skin packaging as a technology is there to extend shelf life and preserve a product. And so you've got to put it in context of the choices of the packaging. The next one is designed to provide consumer convenience, which is not wasting food during the handling in the household. And we all know that we've either got a knife or a pair of scissors and we've ripped open a pack because we can't open it because it's too bloody hard to open. We can't tear open a meat tray because it doesn't have an overhang tag. We can't reseal it properly. It goes moldy because the reseal zip doesn't work properly. All these things. And so we want to encourage our packaging designers to come up with more intuitive packaging that can be easily openable, be easily closable, be resealable so that it protects that product and preserves that product. We want it to be small portion control, easily grippable, and so we can open it and hold it and close it and seal it. And things like freezer ready is another one. Making sure that we're communicating to consumers that it's freezer ready and extends shelf life. And so really thinking about the types of packaging, intelligent packaging, active packaging, all those areas that we have available to us that can extend shelf life and minimize food waste. Then the next one is very much around how do we communicate this to consumers, because all too often the packaging doesn't communicate appropriately. Is it freezer ready? How would you know? How would you know that you should separate that pack of meat and then put some in the freezer and write the date on and all these things? And so we need to look at our packaging and say, okay, how can we tell consumers how to store it, how to freeze it, whether I should put it in a pantry, what does the date labelling mean? Is it a use by date at best before all of that? And that's where intelligent packaging comes into play. That's where things like 2D codes and QR codes that we all know now since COVID started, we all understand them now. And so you use those tools to be able to say, did you know this is freezer ready? If you pop this in your freezer, you can extend the shelf life by 3 months. Or do you know that you could cook this way and give them recipe ideas or storage ideas? And so it's very much about putting some responsibility on the packaging to say, communicate, tell your consumers what you're doing with this packaging and why it extends the shelf life of this product, and all of those things that we probably don't do as well as we should. And then the other one is the one that we started this conversation with, is about getting the balance right between packaging waste and food waste, and then pushing that conversation back to the environmental impacts of food waste are so much higher, and packaging has a really important role to play in minimising food loss and waste if we design it appropriately at the start. But we also understand we need to make sure that it's recyclable, that it can be reused as many times as possible, that has the lowest environmental impact. And I think for me, one of the challenges with the balance is that we don't talk about a product and a pack together. And so when we talk about environmental impacts, everyone always pushes the packaging out and only talks about the recyclability of that pack. And we're not looking at that overarching whole of system environmental impact of when it was grown in the farm to when it was consumed by a household, and then obviously if it's packaging, can it be recycled at the end of life? And so they're the guidelines. They're very simple guidelines. We drill down into those as well through our resources and our booklets, so in a lot more detail so people can engage with different elements of that. And we also teach them how to test and trial and demonstrate the packaging as they go through these models.
Wow, that's so comprehensive, and you're so right about, we don't communicate to people. I'm just thinking, last night for dinner, I'm trying to figure out how to open the package, what to do with the package, and I'm not, we're not alone. Sometimes it seems like a big mountain to climb, and it's great that people like yourselves are addressing this sort of thing. And you mentioned at the end there, which I'm really interested in, you've got some resources and some support. So people, this isn't a challenge you have to try and figure it out all yourself and do a bit of Google searching, which is my first way of trying to find out an answer. But, at the Australian Institute of Packaging, you've got resources and you've got a training course. And so how could people access that? And who is this for? Is it for the designers, or is it for the producers or the logistic provider? Who should be coming to this course, or who should be accessing these resources? Because they sound fantastic.
Well, I think everyone should be accessing the resources, because we haven't designed them in a way that are just for packaging designers or technologists. And it is really critical that the managing directors and CEOs and owners of these brands understand the role that packaging can play through design in their food waste journey. So we believe we've developed all of the resources and guides and checklists, etc., for anyone to be able to intuitively understand. And then with our training course, we have developed an introduction to, say, food packaging design, so that anyone, so whether you're a business development, a small business, you're an industrial designer, you're a marketing person, you're a boutique design agency, we want everyone that's involved with developing a product and a pack to be a part of this conversation. And when you talk about things like transportation and distribution, all of the stakeholders within transportation and distribution need to understand that that's a critical area where we have high losses. And so it might not necessarily be the fault of the packaging, it might actually be a fault within the transportation. But we also need to be able to intervene or be alerted at the time that, for example, a truck door is open or a refrigerator breaks down. And you can do that through intelligent packaging, and you can do that through time temperature indicators, and you can do that through thermochromic ink technology on your packaging. So there is an intervention between the packaging and the transportation and logistics. And for me, cold chain is such an area that we don't discuss as much, because we could intervene and improve if we collaborated together, particularly within that area of transportation and distribution.
Oh, absolutely. We have many conversations with people we work with around using some of those technologies to see what is going on in the cool chain. And it's not about, pointing the finger and saying, it's your fault. It's about working collaboratively through the chain, because we all want the product to get from A to B in the best quality possible and with the longest shelf life. And the other piece I wanted to highlight, you were talking about Australia's reputation for premium foods globally and the role that packaging has in that. And I think that's really important to remember, that we do have a reputation that we do want to uphold. The packaging needs to be that fit for purpose. It needs to communicate. It's had so many functions. So it's excellent to hear the work that you and the World Packaging Organisation, the Australian Institute of Packaging, the designers are all doing around that. So it's been fantastic to have you with us today, Nerida, to take us through those design principles and what we're trying to achieve. And I guess one of the things we like to do with all of our episodes is we ask our guests to give our listeners a bit of an action plan. So if our listeners are sitting there going, yes, I need to find out more about that, or I need to do something about this, what's something that they could do today, straight after listening to this to this episode? What's an action that they could take today, Nerida?
Well, the first one would be to join the AIP so that you can access all of our resources, training courses, webinars. So you don't have to be a member, but we have everyone can join us in some shape or form. But that's probably the most important, because if you have packaging in your business, we're the technical arm that can train you. We can help you, support you with access to the right packaging suppliers and the right materials, and we can guide you through making the right selection of materials that are fit for purpose and functional. And so my immediate one would be the AIP, and I guess my other two would be to print off the Safe Food Packaging Design Guidelines and start to embed them in your business and use our resources and checklists. And then the third one would be to come to our training courses, and so we can then deep dive with you so that you can work out how you can train other people in your business and to support lowering your environmental impacts. And so for us, we're here to help you. We have the capabilities to support you technically and to train you and your staff. And so come and join us and be a part of the AIP.
Great. Thanks, Nerida. And I can say from personal experience, I've done a few of the courses. I certainly access some of the resources, and I can tell everyone out there listening to this that they are fantastic. Such great resources. They really help. So thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us about the Safe Food Packaging. And congratulations on winning the inaugural award at the National Food Waste Summit. And it really is a great recognition of the role that packaging plays in minimising food waste and food loss in Australia and around the world. So thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me, and certainly the award was recognition of a lot of hard work from a lot of people that collaborated together to create these resources and training courses, and we're extremely proud of the fact that we are leading the world, and this is just the first step to embed this all the way around the world, and we really do look forward to that global journey of participating in raising that voice for the true role that packaging plays in minimising food loss or waste. So thank you so much, and thanks for having me.
So Nerida took us through the 5 design criteria for safe food packaging. And she mentioned some fantastic resources that have been developed by the Australian Institute of Packaging and our good friends at End Food Waste Australia. We popped all of the resources that Nerida mentioned into the show notes, so you can go there, download them, and have a look at them. Nerida also mentioned some training. It's really, really important for everybody in the food industry to understand how to minimize packaging waste and how to minimize food waste using packaging. And there are some solutions. So go to the Australian Institute of Packaging website, and we've also popped a link to that website in our show notes. So in terms of actionable steps, having listened to Nerida today, one of the things that I think we could all be doing is to start having that conversation with packaging designers and packaging suppliers about how to get the balance right. So with that, it's goodbye from me. Until next time, keep up the fight.